Thank you for having me here. I love this festival and it means so much to our city, so thank you. And thanks to all the volunteers here. You're all responsible for everybody's debate now, so thank you.
Yeah, they work so hard, and all we do is like give them one T-shirt the whole week.
They get to see all the movies though.
And you can see a lot of movies, so that's great. I actually started as a volunteer. It's a great thing. Please volunteer. So thanks so much for sitting and talking to us about this movie. I have a lot of questions I'd like to ask you. Can you tell me a little bit about what your approach was to sort of building this character? Because it seems to me like, was this sort of when you're creating a character like this, was this a collaboration that you and the director talked about?
Absolutely. I think the biggest part of the character was the writing. Brady wrote such a specific character that felt so grounded and such like a real human being with, very, very dark sides, very, sometimes she's really authentic and sometimes she's totally fake. And sometimes she's cruel and sometimes she's gentle and sometimes she's, performing and sometimes she's being. And it was really just remarkable reading it. So I feel like that really provided a great blueprint. And then, watching all the different documentaries that Pops was made, almost all of them have made them now, and working on the choreography, actually, my dance coach, Raquel, is here somewhere. Ready for going from having a baby into being able to do squats and stilettos. Doing the recording, that was kind of the preparation.
Right. This is actually read the choreography. So, and then I saw also in the credits, and she's in the film as well. Celia Rawson Hall is the choreographer for the film. Is that right?
Well, she
choreographed
choreographed the piece where she's teaching rap, who plays the young Celeste. The choreography in that scene.
Right.
And then my husband Benjamin actually choreographed the end sequence, which was really nice to get to.
Oh, your whole family is talented.
Thank you.
That's interesting. She's a filmmaker on her own, Celia, and we actually had a film fairs a few years ago. And so talking about mentioning the younger actress who plays Celeste in the earlier half of the film, what was that like? Did you work with her to kind of build the character as, did you guys talk about how that sort of two sides of the character were going to work together in a sense, or?
We actually didn't, and I think that was intentional for Brady because he really wanted them to be different characters, because she's really changed, obviously. You see this innocent young woman at the beginning and then catch her after, 20 years of hard life, I guess. And I loved the fact that he chose to skip that period because we all know how to fill it in. We know plenty of the hard times of a pop star, the rocky road until their resurrection is such a familiar tale to us, so you don't have to see it.
That's what I really love about the film. There's so much that is sort of, that it jumps in such a deliberate way. So is that what sort of drew you to I feel like at this point in your career, you are obviously able to be very selective about the roles you choose to take on. Is that what really drew you to this character, that it was this multifaceted sort of part?
Yeah, I thought it was an incredible opportunity, the character to play a character like that I never had the chance to play before, and then also to work with someone like Brady, who I think is incredibly talented and interesting, full of great ideas. And then also, I think a lot of the themes are really relevant to the world we live in, feel like a really accurate portrait of what it's like to live in this moment in history, which feels very, very specific, that I hadn't seen reflected in that way before.
That's interesting. Yeah, I think so as well. I love the sort of the title cards that give the date, and then
Well, that's a lot. Physically, it was a lot of preparation. I worked with Raquel. I worked with my husband on the choreography for about like a month. So I actually prepped the film twice because the night before, I think it was actually on my way to the airport the first time. And they were like, turn home, financing fell apart. And so we were literally about to shoot, and the financing fell through, and the movie was canceled, and I had prepped everything, and then when everything got pulled back together again, it was a few months later, so I had to kind of start over again, even though, of course, it was relatively recent in my memory, I had to kind of start over. And so that was kind of nice because it actually gave a longer time to prep and a longer time for it to kind of like sit in my head and my body and all that. So physically that was, dance training, physical training, just to have the kind of endurance to do like a show like that. And then emotionally, I thought it was, I kept asking Brady, like, should I be kind of off? She's obviously had this massive breakdown right before, and she's obviously had this drug experience. And he was like, no, she's out of it, and like this kind of trip is like down, back up, and she's like a professional, and she's done this a million times, and she can operate even a little bit messed up.
With her game, she's like at where she wants to be in a sense.
Yeah, I mean, maybe not the peak, maybe, but can handle it to the point where her audience isn't aware that she was having a drug-fueled meltdown minutes earlier. So that was really informative in terms of like the headspace of just being able to enter, like that she can kind of enter a space and leave everything behind her that just happened, that she can go in anew, which was an interesting kind of key to the character too, because there's a certain kind of erasure that I think must have to happen.
Right.
And then logistically, we had a day and a half to shoot it. Brady shot this entire movie in 22 days. I shot in 10 days.
Wow.
And we shot, they opened a studio right around the corner from my house where I grew up, and like right around the corner from my school where I grew up. So it was legitimately like a homecoming kind of feeling. And we stayed at this hotel that like, I forget what it's called, but it's like something like fancy sounding, like the Babylon Inn or something. It was like where I went to like every bar mitzvah growing up. The guy at the door was like, I remember you from when you were, in your bar mitzvah dress. And I was like, oh God. So it was a real kind of return to my roots kind of feeling. Very easy to go into my accent. Where I grew up.
So serendipitous, I love it.
Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy. 10 days that you spent?
10 days. And the first day shooting was the like drug meltdown. And go.
Do you have more hours a day than the rest of us, or?
No, and actually I think it's really to Brady's credit that despite that short shoot, like the days we weren't going overtime. One of the days was my daughter's first birthday, and he and Jude were like, you're going home now, you finished your side, you're leaving, you're going home to your baby. And I was like, no, I need to stay, I need to be professional. And they were like, you're going, this happens once. And they kind of kicked me outside. So they were so normal and life affirming about, you're working, but it's possible to do your work in the work hours of the day. You don't have to go crazy overtime, and you're able to, just had to do with Brady being incredibly organized and specific with his vision and understanding the time constraints and choosing to shoot things in ways that you notice a lot of things are done in one shot that are virtuosic shots, but also are practical for, you can shoot shoot one scene and do it 10 different ways and really get to explore and play, but, you know, you're able to do it in a time constraint.
I always think it's so nice, like, it matters so much more like who you work with really than what you do, you know, like if you're working with people that you enjoy working with, like that makes all the difference. It doesn't matter like if you're, you know, a coal miner or whatever, so it seems like a really good team you had here on this.
It was so lucky, and when people are generous, I personally find like I want to give everything. I want to like creatively just open myself, and when people are less than generous, I shut myself in. I'm sure a lot of people are like that too. But yeah, it's good example when people can be like auteurs and be like human beings with hearts, you know, at the same time. It's important.
And you mentioned Mr. Jude Law, who is fantastic in the film. Can you talk a little bit about what your collaboration was like with him? How do you guys talk about how the two characters related? His performance is so like sort of, I feel like idiosyncratic and just sort of like really delicate, but yeah, wonderfully strange.
Jude is just one of the greatest actors. He's just so phenomenal, and I mean his voice in this is like different than I've ever heard. It was just such this like amazing resonance. He is again also one of the kindest, most wonderful people I know, and a real major talent. And it was very lucky because this is the 4th film I've been in with him.
Oh really?
We were together the first time on Cold Mountain almost 20 years ago, and then Closer, and then we both were in My Blueberry Nights. We didn't have scenes together, but we were in the film together, the Wong Kar-wai film. So I've known him over the course of like 20 years. We don't know each other. We've never been like buddies or like hanging out or anything, but I've worked with him many times, and so it was lucky going into this that we had like a history and a comfort level we could play off of. That you know, day one, I already felt like at ease.
And what an incredible like list of filmmakers like Miguel and Wong Kar-wai. I think that's like it's quite a run.
And Brady Corbet.
And Brady Corbet. So yes, we know this report. So what do you feel like? Because Brady's also been an actor, of course. He's a very talented actor as well. Do you feel like, as an actor, he brings something else to the sort of directing? Like, does it help him or help you work with a director who sort of has that background, or does that inform decisions and communication?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, this is a great opportunity to talk about a man who's in the room,
Yeah.
but not yet up here. So I can say whatever I want. Can't respond. But I'll be real. He's really understanding of actors because of that. I think he really understands the freedom that you want and need, and he created a situation, first of all, where you feel very like safe and taken care of, and you know that you have someone considerate looking out for you, which already creates a safe environment. But then on top of it, he, you know, these long takes, we were able to do these scenes that are written quite lengthily. I mean, that diner scene, I think, was a 10 or 12-page scene, and you can do that in its entirety. And when you can do it in its entirety, you really are able to like first modulate throughout the scene, like where you're going, what turns you take, and you also are able to keep track of like doing completely different things and letting starting points that are different go different places, end different places. So it's a real gift because you know doing like a fragment of a scene is hard. It's like a whole different scale. So it was really incredible to get. And so that diner scene, for example, he had 2 cameras so that we could do the scene in its entirety. And if we were spontaneous with each other, you could get the reaction too, so you didn't have to like repeat interesting moments that happen or something. You could just let them exist. So it was really fun, and despite having such a short amount of time, I felt like I could do 12 completely different takes for every scene because we were shooting that way, and that was, I mean, I haven't had that freedom on anything.
Yeah, that sounds so liberating. That's fantastic.
Well, maybe this is a good chance for us to invite him to join us up here. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage. Congratulations on the film. That was just tremendous. You guys liked it, right? Brady, could you tell us a little bit about how you sort of came up with this idea in the first place? It's so intense and bold, this link between like pop culture and mass shootings and the sort of like transcendence through pop art. What was the sort of like genesis for this idea for you?
My previous movie was a historical movie that was set in the early part of the 20th century and was about the 6 months leading up to the signing of the Treaty of Versailles and sort of about how these 6 months sort of established foreign policy as we know it and as it's practiced today, for better and for worse. And after finishing my film, I wanted to, that film was made in Europe, and I'm an American, so I wanted to come back and make a movie at home in America. And also I'm 30 years old, so I wanted to make something that I was a little bit more of an authority on than the Paris Peace Conference. So I sort of just approached it like a historical movie, but set between 1999 and 2017. Part of the reason the film was set in 2017 versus 2018 or 19, when many people will see it, was so that even though it's the recent past, it's all set in the past. And yeah, I mean, in regards to the film, the idea wasn't so much about the link between mass shootings and pop music, because there is no link. But just the fact that the desire to be iconic. Like I've described it before as that the 20th century and its relationship to violence was about banality of evil, and that in the 21st century it's about pageantry of evil, and sort of about the spectacle of evil, so I was thinking about the nature of spectacle in both positive and very negative ways, of course, that was the idea.
And not to kind of put too much of my own sort of like interpretation of the film, but the way the film ends, to me feels transcendent and kind of sits in this like history of like transcendent filmmaking, like Bresson or stuff like that. Was that always the intention, or did you ever like consider the film ending any other way?
No, I thought that there was something kind of fascinating about the fact that a shooting in the first 10 minutes would be so gripping, but then the concert would be treated in a very procedural way. So that there would be transcendent moments, but a lot of the time you'd be seeing it for precisely what it is. Like you see sort of beyond the glitter in a way. And I mean, like, sure, like Robert Bresson's probably my favorite filmmaker. I have no idea what Robert Bresson would think about this movie. I think it would be but yeah, I think that I actually think that I think the most important thing when you set out to make something and is at least the goal is transcendence, like or die trying. It's more interesting, I think, because otherwise it's a little bit boring.
So talk a little bit about, or let's talk a little bit about when you first got Natalie involved in the project and what that sort of did to the whole production, like when you guys started working together, how you first sort of talked about
really speak the same language, and actually all of the actors in the film are very, very clever and extremely technical actors. So I was really fortunate. Like I didn't have a weak link. Like everybody was super prepared, and understood what we were doing, or if they didn't understand it completely, trusted what we were doing. I mean, the film stylistically, it's a bit indescribable in a way, it shifts gears a lot. But everybody would just sort of, everyone sort of, showed up pretty game for whatever we had to achieve that day. And it's exhilarating when you prepare a project for a few years. And like we didn't have a table read or anything, so I never heard any of these words spoken out loud. I wasn't even sure if monologues in the diner and stuff could really be delivered. I mean, honestly, I didn't. I thought there's a lot of alliteration and stuff, and there's a lot of jokes. And I thought maybe it's something that is kind of fun to read, but maybe not that fun to watch. And then it was just, it was really gratifying and amazing to watch Natalie and Rocky do it. I mean, I've been dreaming about it for many years, these two people talking. And so, it was exhilarating.
Rocky's the actor who plays your daughter and plays the younger version, correct?
Yeah.
That's such an interesting choice to have the same actor play those two roles.
Isn't it?
Was that always the intention?
That was always the intention.
And how did you find this film?
I had seen Rafi in a few things. She had been, I'd seen her in a short film that she did for the BBC. She was, I think, about 12 years old. She's super impressive in it. I keep bringing this up, so I should find out what it's called. But she was really amazing in it. And I seen her very recently in Yorgos's film, which is, the way that Yorgos's dialogue works in his films is so particular. Yeah, he has, and Killing the Sacred Deer.
Oh my gosh, she's so good.
And it has like a very specific rhythm, and it's very, very stylized, and she handles it really well. So I thought, I could tell she was like very technical actor, because she really kind of, made something quite peculiar work very, very well. And then, I just thought that there was this kind of beautiful thing about how at the end of the movie you have this character that is, it can be interpreted in a couple of ways, but that her daughter is, potentially, her Celeste's story is kind of a tragedy, but maybe her daughter's story has a happier ending because the future is kind of uncertain. But there's also something fascinating about your sort of younger self, kind of regarding the grotesque kind of absurdity of your adult self. I mean, I find myself grotesque and absurd. So I don't know. I thought there was something interesting about the kind of cyclical nature of what it is that our children inherit, and that somehow the character would be in dialogue with herself in a way in the second half of the film. So but it was an interesting decision, and unfortunately, everybody didn't. They said, oh, okay, we'll trust you until we see it.
So, Natalie, you said you didn't really talk to her that much though about her performance for the first half of the film though, but what was your working relationship like when you guys were shooting together? Did you guys rehearse a lot together, or?
Raffi's remarkable. We didn't rehearse. We didn't rehearse together. We just started working, and it was. She's incredible. I mean, the first time I saw her work as young Celeste was when I saw the finished film, and so to see how she could modify her performance so subtly and really be believable as two completely different characters. I really thought Brady was like nuts for making this decision. I was like, really? Sure, like you're gonna make me stand next to the character that played me in the beginning, and the same character, even though we're in the
But
same
you were very
scene.
kind. You never brought it up.
I did ask you in our early conversations. I was like, why are
You
you?
inquired, but I didn't realize you were that hesitant.
But I trusted it because Brady was very convinced about it, and I think it's so powerful to me in the film that you are looking. I mean, I think we so often see our kids as versions of ourselves, and how we relate to them with all the self-hatred and self-love, like alternately, or sometimes all at once. And then I think it's just so powerful to have it embodied that the entire time she's with her daughter, she's also with her younger self. Both is what that means just for everyone in parenthood, but also for the film to get to see both of these versions of this woman together. I think that's a really, it really, and I think it works because it's like a metaphor, but it also works literally, you know? She does such a great job acting Raffi that you do always believe her as both characters and as different people. But she holds within her both characters. So there's like a doubling of meaning all the time.
But I also think it's one thing that's very complicated. When it comes to contemporary movies, usually what you're trying to, or one is trying to achieve, is authenticity. And I don't feel like the goal in either part one of the film or part two was about achieving authenticity. For me, it was sort of about evoking reality. So if you have a representational relationship with reality and performance as opposed to a presentational one. So it's not a docudrama, it's like a little left or right of that. And I found that everybody kind of, it's like not something you discuss, it's just like something that you kind of hope is in the text and that everybody kind of feels. And I felt like, there's something very interesting about seeing, Raffi, who is so austere in the first half of the film, and everything is played at 10%, and then in the second half of the film, everything is at 110%, and then you see for a moment those two. It's like very abrasive. You have 5 minutes to sort of deal with it, and then those two parts of the movie sit down and have a conversation, and it sort of acts as the film's centerpiece, so that minimalism and maximalism can kind of have a discussion. And I think that it's something that is so wrong. It's like something you're not allowed to do. You're not allowed to change genres. You're not allowed to color outside of the lines at all. And I mean, how many fucking boring discussions I had about the fact that the film missed the second act. Everyone was like, maybe they thought I fell asleep in the middle of writing or something. And they're like it's missing in the middle. And it was, but it's, I think that, it's important to at least attempt to be a little bit progressive when I mean, it's still a narrative, it's not like that abstract, it's not a fucking haiku. And so you just sort of feel like at least a narrative film, after 100 years of doing it one way, that we should start trying to advance the conversation like a little bit.
Thank you. That's amazing. I love the choice that you made with the act structure. I think it's beautiful. But just as a final note, I just want to say maybe I'm just a dense person, but Raffi, I feel like her two performances are so nuanced that it took me a long time to be like, oh wait a minute, that's the same girl, right?
I know, it's funny. The only difference is like,
just like look different. Yeah.
And the contacts, just her eyes.
I remember when we started filming, I hadn't been there for the first part, and everyone was like, Raffi, your eyes! Like, everyone was so, because her natural eyes are blue, like the second half, so, yeah, that was the big.
It's hiding in plain sight. It works every time. It's so good.
So good. So I want to ask you a couple questions about sort of the other collaboration and craft. We talked a little bit about the dance work. You said your dance, who's here in the audience?
My trainer and coach.
Your dance trainer and coach.
Okay.
And your husband did the choreography for
the end performance.
That's amazing. At what point did he come on in the project?
It was around the
Same
same
time
time
you came
I
on.
did, yeah, because
And-
it was like, we have a month to do this, can you help me, honey? And he was like, okay.
And we talked about Celia Walson Hall, who has a brief part. She's the choreographer at the beginning of the film. How did you first find out about her, Brady? Like,
She's just our friend.
Oh.
She's just a good friend of ours. I
course.
mean, my wife and her are old friends, and she just has, she acts in her own work, but she's never like done, like, and she does this kind of very unique, sort of dance-based projects, and she just looks amazing. Like her eyes are insane, and she just, you know, she just looks great.
yeah, she's like a
So we
person.
asked her to do us a favor.
You guys have amazing friends. It sounds like,
Me too.
yeah,
I'm sure.
I just, can I come to the dinner party next time? And then, so let's talk about the music in the film. Sia, how did that happen? How did that collaboration begin? And what was the sort of, how did you guys all like work on it together?
We reached, I reached out to her very early on, and asked her, I sort of realized it was gonna be very problematic because to have 9 original pop songs in a movie, because the thing is just that most of the people who make pop music, these like pop factories, they get paid a lot of money to do that, and we didn't have a lot of money, and so I kind of, I realized that we needed a partner. Like we couldn't have like 35 partners, we needed one, and then it was really like, the list was extremely short of artists that actually write their own pop songs that are also really good. Because the thing is that I thought it would be too easy to make a mockery of these songs if they weren't good, and like the movie wouldn't be compelling, and it wouldn't be particularly difficult. Like wouldn't leave you wrestling with anything if all of it was just total crap. Because the thing is that even though like all of the costumes and everything is so garish, like, you know, like it's rooted in something which are like these songs. If you go home and like you play them, like they're actually really exciting pop songs. It's always weird the first time you hear something, you're still processing it, but like there's like hits on that soundtrack. And so anyway, I wrote to her, and she really kindly opened up her library to us, and like of stuff that she had written a long time ago that, you know, had been produced around the time that parts of the movie took place. And it was basically a process of mixing and matching lyrics and choruses and verses and whatever to make the soundtrack. And then everything had to be re-recorded, remade, reproduced by a few people, Greg Thurston, and also the vocal producer, brilliant guy named Chris Brady, who recorded all of the songs with the actors and did all the vocal production. And so yeah, I mean it took a long time. It was a lot of effort. Like there's like a soundtrack for a movie that didn't exist for like 2 years. So it was, but we were really fortunate. We had great partners.
Natalie, what did you think of coming on and having that music there?
Well, it was incredible when I received the script, to have the Sia song with it. You know, I remember getting an email with these attachments of the songs, and she sings them on the demos herself, so of course they're just gorgeous. I mean, still amazing to listen to here. She, you know, it was just beautiful songs, and really great pop songs, and so I knew that it was realistic, like that, because if you read a script and then it says, and then she writes a hit pop song, and you don't see the song, you're like, okay, good luck getting that. But it was clear from the beginning that it had this incredible music. And then getting to record it was really fun, because I got to work with Chris Brady, who Brady was just mentioning, who's incredible and the loveliest person, and yeah, just see what they can do. And I mean, they're the real artists. You see, they can do so much magic to make things sound like what we're used to hearing.
Sounds amazing. And so was the recording before the shooting or after? Okay, cool. Interesting. And so do you guys gonna like release the soundtrack at some point?
Yes.
That's very exciting.
And well, there's two soundtracks. I mean, there's going to be Scott Walker's orchestral score, and then there's going to be pop songs. And yeah, we'll figure out how to make it meet in the middle on Spotify or something.
So it's like we were like dancing over the aisle when we were love this music so much.
To the Scott Walker score.
Yes. And Neon is distributing the film later this year, right?
They are. They're
December
released
7th.
very soon.
December 7th?
Yeah, December 7th. I mean, it's hard to imagine when you start something in your bedroom late at night that there's ever going to be a group of people that are watching this thing finish. So thank you very much for coming. And if you saw something in the film, like something that you liked, then it would be great if you told somebody that. even if you go like, I fucking hated it, you should see it. And we'll be at Q&As, and you can like throw tomatoes at us next time.
Natalie Brady, thank you so much. Thank you all.